How do we know that somebody is going to kill? What are the warning signs? Is it putting up their house for sale so they can skip town, selling all of the things in the home, or quitting their job? Today we might see some of those warning signs in this case that we are about to follow. In this case is of our neighbors episode. Hello and welcome to Investigating Iowa. My name is Sarah. I'm so excited you came back this week because we have another Cases of Our Neighbors. And this case is about kind of a husband and wife, and it just follows one main suspect being the husband, but doesn't really share a whole lot of details. So before we get into it, I just want to say I mean no disrespect to any of the parties involved, and I am just finding all these pieces of information through articles, videos, and online cases, files, and forums, and just putting it together in a video for you to watch. So with that, we will get into Effie Bell's case from Madrid, Iowa. Effie Bell was a mother of three who lived in Madrid with her husband. Madrid is between Ames and Des Moines, if you don't know. And she was actually a very dedicated worker. She worked at McRae's Cosmetics in Madrid for about 8 years. She had a very great relationship with her manager and good relationship with her friends and family. She actually went by the name Cupie to a lot of her friends and family. But for this case, I'm just going to call her Effie. On Friday, March 18, 1966, Effie left work and just said that she was going to go and have a weekend with her husband to her manager. She then went home to her husband, who had quit his job the day before at John Deere in Des Moines, and they kind of had the weekend open and ready to do whatever they felt like. However, the following Sunday, Frank would call Effie's manager at his home and say that Effie wasn't going to be coming into work the next day. Frank said that Effie was very nervous and upset and actually got on a train and went to her sister's house in Illinois. And so she wouldn't be coming into work. The following Wednesday, Frank came by Effie's work and grabbed her paycheck, her last paycheck, which was for about $40. And the manager stopped and asked him when Effie would be coming back, and he said never. She wouldn't be coming back. This brought up a lot of questions to the manager, first of which being that Effie had gone out of town before and that she had gone to visit her sister, but always gave him a timeline, the manager a timeline of when she would be leaving and when she would be returning. She'd never just kind of up and left, but Frank was saying that she had decided to leave town and wasn't thinking she was going to be coming back. Following Effie's leaving Madrid, there was actually a lot of rumors that swirled around town, and one of the primary ones was that Frank had been telling people he was going to move. And, you know, this doesn't seem out of the ordinary, seeing as he did quit his job, except for the fact that he was telling people he was going to be moving as early as the Wednesday before Effie left town. So in the order of events, it was Wednesday that he was first heard that he was going to be moving. And then Thursday he quit his job. Friday is the last time anybody saw Effie other than her husband. And then we hadn't heard from her. But the other strange thing was that he was saying that he would be moving. He didn't mention anything about Effie, didn't mention anything about his children, just said that he would be moving. And the last weird part is that Effie never mentioned it to anybody, never mentioned that she would be moving or that her family would be moving. So people kind of found it strange that this was going around town, that he was telling people he was moving. Frank did a lot of handyman work around the town, just would do different repair work in people's homes. And one of the men that he did repair work for said that he got offered a refrigerator by Frank. Apparently Frank came in and had said, "Do you want to buy my refrigerator off of me?" And the man asked a few questions, and Frank had said, "Well, last Saturday, I put my wife on a train and she's not coming back. And so I'm selling everything in the house and I'm leaving town." So that also stirred up quite a bit of talk. On May 31st, two children who were siblings, one 18 years old and one 12 years old, were poking around in the dump for fun. They were just seeing what they could find in the Madrid dump. But when they moved a piece of tin over, they realized that there was a skull underneath it. They immediately called authorities, and when they called for authorities, they realized that the dump laid on two pieces of two different counties. So one would be Dallas County and one would be Boone County. The sheriff's departments didn't really know what to do, so they decided they wanted to work together, and they actually invited the State Department to come in and help investigate as well. This is one of the few times that I've seen where multiple counties are involved and they actually want to work together. We've talked about this in previous cases that a lot of time for pride reasons, county or different counties or different police jurisdictions don't necessarily work well together because they want the pride in getting to know who can solve the case. And we found that in previous cases, if you want to go back into the cases of our neighbors' history to look at some of those. But it's really cool that these three different departments decided to work together to try and solve this case. One officer arrived to the scene shortly after the skull was found, and he said that there was a fraction of the skull that was missing. He couldn't tell, though, if it was any cause of death reason that it would be missing or if possibly due to things moving around in the dump and things being piled on top of the skull, if that caused the skull to break after the person had already passed. A few other things that they found at the scene were 3 rings, one of which was definitely a wedding band that they found still on the fingers, and there were fragments of clothing that were still attached to the body and the remains that were still at the scene. They also saw that there were clothes near the head of the skeleton that were burnt. So they didn't really know what to do with all of this and decided to send all of these pieces of evidence to Iowa City, to the University of Iowa, to get examined. At the time, there was no missing women in Dallas or in Boone County, so they weren't really sure where to look first, but they thought that these first steps of taking the remains to Iowa City would be the best way to find out who this body belonged to. We aren't sure what brought the police to believe that these rings belonged to Effie, but they took the rings down to Ankeny, where her son Frank Jr. lived, and asked him to identify the rings, and he confirmed that they were his mother's. On June 4th, an agent saw Frank's car in Des Moines and decided to follow it to one of his relatives' home. And he got out of the car, went into the home, and the agent called for backup. Pretty soon, police were surrounding the house and asked for him to come out with his hands up, and so he did. They ended up arresting him, but all they could get him on was the fact that he took his wife's last paycheck, forged her signature, and deposited the check without her permission. So that's all they could make stick, and they ended up taking him to jail for that. The officials got the warrant that they needed to take a look at the Bells' home in Madrid. They looked at everything. They took pieces of clothing. They took little things around their home. They even tore apart their sewer to find more evidence, but nothing came of it that I could find. Meanwhile, Frank's employer back in Madrid said that he was a great employee. He was always willing to help, and he strived to just assist people in any way that they needed to, kind of upholding the character he believed that Frank had. On June 11th, it was confirmed that the body found at the Madrid dump did belong to Effie Bell. There was no cause of death released except for the fact that the body was burned after the person was already deceased. They also said that they were able to confirm her body because she had broken her foot a year before and had x-rays done, and that helped them find out that this was Effie's body. Investigators say that this case is still open and that this death was ruled a homicide. Frank was never convicted or even charged for his wife's death, but he was held for a while on the charge of forgery. Nothing else was really found about this case. I really don't know how much time Frank spent in jail for the forgery. I don't know how that case went down. I couldn't find any information on it. But I do find it very strange that this whole case was based on suspicion. Definitely something did happen to Effie. And if you do know anything, please contact the phone number on the screen. But even though that something horrible happened to her, and a lot of people point to Frank as what caused it, it's all based on suspicious activity. There was really no solid evidence to link Frank to his wife's death. I just ask that everybody is respectful in the comments section. We've been having really great discussion lately. I've seen a lot of people talk about the last case that was really interesting about the hotel and, how did the door lock behind the person who had killed this couple, and really interesting theories going around. So please keep discussing it. And I just ask again, please be respectful in the comments section. This is somebody's family member, somebody's friend, somebody's neighbor. And with that, we will see you next week.